1993, government biologist Dr. James Whitmore discovered that Bigfoot is an extraterrestrial species that's been teaching humans for 40,000 years. 6 weeks later, he perished in federal custody from cardiac arrest. I found his hidden research cache last winter, and I'm about to show you everything they tried to bury. November 2023. The snow came early that year, heavy and wet, coating the Cascades in white silence. I was following a pattern I'd noticed over the previous 3 months: unusual tree breaks at specific elevations, territorial markers that didn't match any known animal behavior, and something else. Something that made 50 years of tracking experience tell me I was onto something significant. The breaks weren't random. They formed a trail, leading deeper into restricted territory, areas where even experienced guides like me rarely ventured. The forest changed as I followed them. The usual sounds faded into an oppressive quiet that pressed against my eardrums. The temperature dropped despite the afternoon sun. My breath came in visible clouds as I pushed through undergrowth that showed signs of large bodies passing through recently. That's when I found the cave entrance, concealed behind a waterfall cascade, hidden by decades of moss and vine growth. You'd walk past it 1,000 times and never see it. Fresh disturbances in the moss around the opening. Something had been here recently, something big. Inside, the passage descended steeply into darkness. My headlamp revealed limestone formations dripping with moisture, creating rhythmic echoes that made it impossible to hear if anything else moved in the shadows. The air smelled different down here, metallic, almost sterile, preserved. 50 yards in, the passage opened into a chamber. And there, arranged against the far wall, were waterproof containers covered in dust, but still intact. Military-grade storage cases, designed to last decades. Each one labeled with faded government research codes and a name stenciled in black letters: Dr. James Whitmore, United States Forest Service Wildlife Biology Division. Dated August through September 1993. I recognize that name. Every tracker in the Pacific Northwest knows about Whitmore, the government scientist who went missing 30 years ago during what they called a routine wildlife survey. Official reports said he likely perished from exposure or animal attack. Case closed. But here was his equipment, his research, deliberately hidden in a location that doesn't exist on any topographical map. This wasn't someone lost in the woods. This was someone hiding evidence. I opened the first container. Inside were field journals, specimen samples in sealed preservation tubes, recording equipment, cameras, and something that made my hands shake. A handwritten note dated the 23rd of September 1993, 3 days before Whitmore was reported missing. The handwriting was frantic, barely legible. If you're reading this, they found me. Everything you need to know is in these journals. They're not what we thought, not evolution, not natural. I have proof of origin. The government shut down my research when I got too close to the truth. Follow coordinates to the primary site. Verify everything yourself. Don't trust official channels. Don't let them silence you too. I sat in that cave for 2 hours, reading through journal after journal as my headlamp batteries drained. What I found in those pages changed everything I thought I understood about what walks these mountains at night. Whitmore started as a skeptic. His early entries from 1992 show a by-the-book scientist assigned to investigate livestock predation reports in the Cascade region. Ranchers were losing cattle, finding them torn apart in ways that didn't match mountain lion or bear attacks. Whitmore dismissed it as folklore. But then, he started finding evidence that didn't fit. Tracks that measured 18 inches long with clear dermal ridges, stride lengths suggesting something 8 to 9 feet tall. Hair samples that didn't match any known North American species. Thermal imagery showing massive heat signatures moving through areas no human could access. By August 1992, Whitmore had photographed tracks, collected dozens of hair samples, and captured audio recordings of vocalizations he described as linguistic in structure. He sent preliminary reports to his division chief. The response came swiftly. Cease all Sasquatch-related documentation immediately. Return to assigned duties. This is not a request. But Whitmore didn't stop. They're shutting me down because I'm finding truth they don't want confirmed. These creatures exist, they're intelligent, and someone in the government already knows. I found maps in the cache, hand-drawn and marked with coordinates. 7 locations radiating from a central point, all in restricted zones. Site 7. The primary location was marked with triple stars, and the note, Origin evidence here. Core territory, eldest specimens, attempt communication. I pulled out my own maps and compared coordinates. The locations aligned perfectly with areas where I'd experienced the most unexplained phenomena. Places where I'd found structures made from trees too massive for humans to move. Places where the forest fell into unnatural silence. Places where I'd felt watched by something that stayed just beyond visual range. Whitmore had documented the same pattern 30 years ago. He'd mapped their territory, identified their seasonal migration routes, and most incredibly, he'd made contact. His June 1993 entries described weeks of observation. He documented family groups, adults, juveniles, and what he called elder specimens that appeared to lead the others. Tool use, coordinated hunting strategies, vocal communication at what he estimated as near-human complexity. But the entry that made me close the journal came from the 7th of August 1993. Observed teaching behavior. Elder specimen instructing juveniles in root digging using sharpened sticks. This isn't instinct. This is learned behavior, cultural transmission. They're not apes, they're people. And then, the 14th of September, 1993. 15 days of recorded vocalizations. Linguistic analysis shows syntax patterns, tonal variation indicating emotional context, repetitive phrase structures suggesting language. I'm going to attempt direct contact at the primary site. The final entries were hurried, terrified. September 18. They communicated with me, led me to a cave complex 2 miles northeast. Inside, artwork, artifacts, evidence that contradicts every assumption about their origins. They're not native to this planet. They came here, and they have proof. September 22. Helicopter activity overhead. Military frequency radio chatter. They know I'm here, hiding primary evidence in this cache. Follow coordinates 45.289, 1 degrees north, 121.812, 4 degrees west. The origin site. Verify everything. I photographed every page, documented every item, and studied those coordinates, the origin site. The place where Whitmore claimed he'd found proof these creatures weren't evolved from Earth's natural biological processes. As I prepared to leave the cave, my headlamp caught something I'd missed. Carved into the limestone wall near the containers, a symbol, geometric patterns arranged in circular formation. And beneath it, scratched in what looked like claw marks, 3 words in English. We were first. The temperature dropped 10 degrees in seconds. My breath formed thick clouds. And from somewhere deeper in the cave system, beyond where my light could reach, came a sound, low, rhythmic. 3 deep knocks followed by 2 slower ones. A pattern, deliberate. Someone or something was down here with me. I backed toward the entrance, pulse hammering. The knocking continued, growing closer. Then it stopped abruptly. Silence is more terrifying than the sound itself. I reached the surface as dusk settled over the mountains. That night, I researched James Whitmore, PhD from UC Berkeley, 15 years with the Forest Service, published researcher specializing in apex predator behavior. By all accounts, a respected scientist with no history of mental instability or fraudulent work, but the official story didn't match what I'd found. Whitmore hadn't been on routine survey work. He'd been investigating something the government wanted suppressed. The next morning, I began verifying his research. The first observation site on his map was a high-elevation valley 3 miles from the nearest trail. What I found confirmed Whitmore's documentation wasn't fantasy. Remnants of his observation post remained weathered tarp fragments, indentations where tripod legs had stood, battery casings from equipment positioned here for extended monitoring, and in the clearing stood structures that defied natural explanation. Massive Douglas fir limbs, 30 feet long and 2 feet in diameter, arranged in deliberate patterns, crossed at precise angles, stacked in formations that would require coordinated effort by multiple individuals with significant strength. No human crew could move these without heavy machinery, and there were no access roads within miles. I found tracks in the soft earth, fresh, less than 48 hours old, 18 inches long, 5 distinct toe impressions, dermal ridges clearly visible, stride length, measuring 9 feet between prints. I spent the next 3 weeks visiting each site on Whitmore's map. Every location showed the same pattern: old observation posts, massive tree structures, tracks, and signs of recent activity. These creatures still used these territories. At Site 4, I found something that made Whitmore's terror understandable. Arranged in a clearing were stones stacked in pyramid formations, 3 rocks balanced in impossible angles, 47 individual pyramids spread across 50 yards, each one positioned with precision. This wasn't animal behavior. This was intelligence, mathematics, communication. I continued toward Site 7. The primary location is deep in Olympic National Forest, 3 miles from the nearest trail marker, into terrain so remote I saw no evidence of human presence from any era. The forest here felt older. Trees reaching heights I'd rarely seen elsewhere, trunks so wide 3 men couldn't encircle them. I reached the valley at dusk, enclosed on 3 sides by steep rock faces, accessible only through a narrow passage, easily missed unless you knew exactly where to look. As darkness fell, the forest came alive with sounds that didn't belong to any animal I'd encountered in 50 years of tracking. Wood knocks, deep, resonating impacts that echoed off the rock walls. 3 rapid strikes, followed by 2 slower ones. Then the pattern repeated from different directions. They were communicating, multiple individuals coordinating through sound. I responded using a stick against a fallen log, matching the pattern exactly. Silence fell across the valley, the complete absence of sound so profound my ears rang. Then answering knocks came from positions surrounding my camp. They'd triangulated my location through a single sound. Movement in the tree line, shapes barely visible in starlight, massive forms shifting between trees. I counted at least 4 distinct individuals, heights ranging from 7 to 9 feet, moving with purpose. Then the vocalizations began. Low howls that started at frequencies I felt in my chest before hearing with my ears, rising through octaves into ranges almost beyond human perception, then descending again in patterns that repeated with variation. Not random animal calls, structured, intentional, language. I recorded everything. Hours of audio showing clear patterns, repetition with modification, call and response sequences between multiple individuals. Linguistic structure was unmistakable. At 2:47 in the morning, the activity ceased abruptly. Absolute stillness. I stayed motionless, barely breathing, feeling watched by intelligence evaluating whether I posed a threat. Dawn came slowly. I emerged from camp and found what they'd left. 30 yards from where I'd slept, in the center of the clearing, were 3 stones stacked in pyramid formation, freshly placed, no moss, no weathering, the ground beneath still showing disturbance. I followed Whitmore's remaining coordinates. 2.3 miles northeast through terrain, requiring technical skills to navigate safely. Steep limestone formations, narrow passages through rock, areas where one wrong step meant a fatal fall. The cave entrance was hidden behind a waterfall cascade. Inside, the passage descended into a massive chamber system that opened into spaces large enough to hold aircraft, and covering every surface were petroglyphs. Not primitive scratches, sophisticated artwork showing scenes of incredible detail, geometric patterns showing mathematical precision, star charts depicting constellations I recognized and others I didn't. Hunting scenes, teaching scenes where larger figures instructed smaller ones, and then the images that made Whitmore risk everything. Craft descending from the sky, Detailed depictions of structured objects with geometric designs, emitting light, landing on mountainous terrain. Beings emerging tall, covered in hair, proportioned exactly like creatures described in Sasquatch reports. Meeting smaller figures, clearly human. The two species interact peacefully, teaching, building, sharing knowledge. Timeline sequences showing their arrival, establishment of populations, integration with early humans, then gradual withdrawal as human civilization expanded. A visual history documenting thousands of years of coexistence, followed by chosen isolation. In the deepest section, I found what Whitmore described as artifacts, metallic fragments with surface corrosion, suggesting extreme age, but metal composition I couldn't identify. Carved stones with crystalline inclusions, generating faint electromagnetic fields. And skeletal remains of a specimen far larger than modern Bigfoot, reports 9.5 feet tall, skull structure showing human-like features mixed with robust ape characteristics. I photographed everything methodically. This was the origin site. The proof Whitmore had found that these creatures weren't products of Earth's evolutionary processes. I sat against the cave wall for 20 minutes, just processing. These beings watched the Ice Age come and go. They watched us discover fire, or maybe taught us. Every human civilization, every achievement, they were here, witnessing it all. My grandfather fought in World War II. There was this look in his eyes when he said, "Some things you can't unsee." I understood that look now. I'd crossed a threshold. On one side, normal life where Bigfoot is folklore. On the other, a reality where we're not alone, never have been, and our entire species might exist because something else decided to teach us. But as I finished documenting the chamber, I noticed fresh disturbances in the dust. Boot prints, multiple sets, military tread patterns, recent within the last week. Someone else had been here. Someone wearing government-issue boots. I searched more carefully, found concealed cameras mounted in rock crevices, motion sensors disguised as natural formations, audio recording devices, all active, all broadcasting. Labels showed Department of Interior equipment codes. The government hadn't just suppressed Whitmore's research. They'd been guarding this location for decades. My cameras suddenly glitched, screens filled with static. The temperature plummeted 20 degrees. The electromagnetic interference intensified. My radio screeching with feedback. Equipment shutting down. Headlamp flickering. Then I heard it. From deeper in the cave system. Footsteps that weren't human, too heavy, too measured. Something was down here with me. Had been the whole time, watching me document their sacred site. I grabbed critical evidence SD cards from my cameras, one metallic fragment, one carved stone, and fled through an alternate exit passage. Behind me, the footsteps continued, neither pursuing nor retreating, just observing, making sure I left. I emerged as helicopter rotors cut through the afternoon air. Military model, no identification markings, flying grid patterns, ground vehicles approaching on access roads I hadn't known existed. I evaded through terrain I knew intimately, used old-growth forest for cover, stayed off trails, moved through water to break tracking attempts. I reached my vehicle and drove carefully, not drawing attention. Back home, I reviewed what I'd captured. Photographs showed everything, petroglyphs depicting arrival from space, artifacts that shouldn't exist, skeletal remains far older than any known Sasquatch reports. But I needed more than photographs. I needed the scientific analysis Whitmore had conducted. His journals mentioned sending samples to a colleague, Dr. Sarah Chen, UC Berkeley Anthropology Department. Finding her was easy. Getting her to speak about Whitmore proved harder. My first 3 calls went unreturned. On the 4th call, she answered, "I've been expecting someone to find James's research eventually. 50 years I've waited. Come to my home, not the university. They watch the university." We met at her residence in the Berkeley Hills 2 days later. Windows covered, phone disconnected, no internet connection. A woman living in deliberate isolation from surveillance. Dr. Chen was 67, silver-haired, with eyes that held decades of suppressed knowledge and fear. "Show me what you found." I displayed the photographs. She studied each one, hands shaking slightly. "It's all still there, exactly as James described." She didn't explain. She showed me. The preserved tissue sample was in a cryogenic container labeled Unknown Primate 1993. When she placed it under the microscope and connected the display screen, I saw what had terrified her for 30 years. "These are telomeres. They determine lifespan. Human telomeres are this length." She pulled up a comparison image. "These are 4 times longer. This specimen could live 300 years, maybe more." She switched slides. "This is mitochondrial DNA. Every species on Earth fits somewhere on the evolutionary tree." She pulled up a chart. "This DNA doesn't fit anywhere. It's like it came from a different forest entirely." My mouth went dry. Different forest meanings? Different planet, Dave. Different evolutionary pathways that never happened on Earth. She showed me metallurgical reports. The metal fragments required manufacturing processes we didn't have in 1993. We still don't have them now. Alloy composition requires precision at the atomic level. Then she loaded an audio file. James recorded this the 18th of September, 1993, 2 days before he vanished. Static, shuffling. Then Whitmore's voice. "This is Dr. James Whitmore. Recorded testimony, September 18. Sarah, you need to hear what happened today." Heavy breathing. Footsteps on stone. "They led me to the cave. The eldest one. He tried to speak. His vocal anatomy isn't built for English, but he tried." Long pause. Then a sound that made every hair on my neck stand up. Deep, guttural, struggling with phonemes never meant for that throat. "We were first." Whitmore's voice again shaking. He said, "We were first. Sarah, they were here first. Before us. They've been watching our entire development, possibly guiding it. We're not the first intelligence on Earth. We're the second." The recording ended. Chen and I sat in silence. 1 week after James disappeared, government agents came to my office. They told me to destroy everything. Never speak about James's research. They said national security, but I knew. They'd eliminated him. So I kept copies. 3 decades I've waited for someone to verify what James found. She handed me a USB drive. "Everything's here. DNA sequencing, metallurgical analysis, carbon dating results, Whitmore's complete research notes. Publish it everywhere simultaneously." As I left, Dr. Chen gave a final warning. "They've monitored me for 30 years. They'll know we met. You have maybe 48 hours before they decide you're too dangerous. Whatever you're going to do it now." I drove through the night, evidence secured, mind racing. I had everything needed to expose the truth, but publishing meant becoming a target. If you want to see how this ends, if you need to know whether I risk everything to expose what our government has been hiding, subscribe now, because what happens next proves that some truths are too dangerous for authorities to let exist freely. Headlights appeared in my rearview mirror, 20 miles from home, same vehicle, following at a consistent distance. They were already tracking me. Decision time. Stay silent and live normally, or expose truth and accept consequences. I chose what Whitmore chose. Some truths are worth the risk. By dawn, I'd uploaded everything to multiple platforms simultaneously. Academic journals, cryptozoology forums, mainstream media outlets, distributed networks designed to prevent single-source suppression. Everything. Within 6 hours, the story exploded across the internet. Mainstream media couldn't ignore the volume of evidence. By afternoon, the government response arrived. The Department of Interior released a carefully worded statement. "We are aware of recent allegations regarding undisclosed wildlife research. Dr. James Whitmore was a contracted researcher who violated established research protocols and disappeared in 1993. Current claims are being investigated." But pressure mounted rapidly. Dr. Chen went public that evening, confirming her laboratory analysis and 30 years of silence under government intimidation. Scientists examined my photographs. Native American tribal representatives released statements saying their ancestors had known about these beings for generations, had told government agencies, and were silenced through legal agreements. Forced into a corner, government strategy shifted. Emergency press conference 3 days after my release. Following thorough review, we can confirm that a previously undocumented North American great ape species inhabits protected territories within federal lands. Classification is designated as critically endangered. Public access to known habitat zones will be restricted. They admitted existence, but spun the narrative, called them undocumented great ape species, not extraterrestrial survivors, claimed remarkable discovery, not decades of suppression. Every word calculated to acknowledge the minimum while burying the real story. I released Whitmore's final audio recording. The elders attempted English. We were first. You forgot. Released Chen's genetic analysis, showing DNA markers incompatible with terrestrial evolution. Released photographs of the spacecraft petroglyphs, the teaching scenes. The government doubled down with statements disputing the extraterrestrial interpretation. Genetic anomalies require further study. Preliminary classifications subject to revision. Petroglyphs may represent mythological content. Stalemate. They'd acknowledged the creatures exist, but successfully muddied the origin question. Public consciousness now held Bigfoot is real as an accepted fact, but Bigfoot is extraterrestrial remained a controversial fringe theory. What do you think these beings really are? Extraterrestrial survivors who've been here for 40,000 years? Ancient human relatives we don't understand? Drop your theory in the comments. And tell me what other mysteries I should investigate in these mountains. Months passed. Bigfoot is officially recognized as an endangered species. Expanded habitat protections. Scientific research permitted only under government oversight. But I started receiving encrypted communications from others who'd experienced similar suppression. Retired Forest Service Ranger, found family group in 1987. Federal agents confiscated all documentation within 48 hours, transferred me to a desk position. Wildlife biologist. Documented specimens in 2004. DNA analysis showed impossible genetic markers. University pressured me to retract findings. Patterns emerged clearly. Systematic suppression spanning decades. Multiple agencies coordinating. Dozens of researchers silenced. Careers ended. Evidence confiscated. Most disturbing contact came through an anonymous encrypted channel from someone claiming current Department of Interior employment. Your evidence is real, but incomplete. Site 7 is one of 19 monitored locations. We have remains, artifacts, DNA samples dating to 1952. Everything classified not for military purposes, but to prevent sociological disruption. Dr. Whitmore was eliminated because he attempted direct contact. You survived because you released everything publicly. 19 sites, likely hundreds of researchers silenced across 7 decades. This was coordinated global policy among nations who discovered the truth and agreed to suppress it. Armed with this understanding, I coordinated with newly connected researchers. We shared classified location coordinates, surveillance patterns, and agency protocols. Network of suppressed scientists organizing around shared knowledge. We planned coordinated evidence releases from multiple sites. Started with Site 3 location in Washington State, where the government maintained most extensive archaeological evidence. Multiple specimens preserved since the 1952, artifacts spanning 40,000 years. And the archive room, purported collection of complete recorded history these beings maintained. Olympic National Park, February 2024. The restricted zone felt wrong the moment we entered. The forest is older than Site 7, cedars 10 feet in diameter, canopy so dense noon felt like dusk. Ground covered in ferns that predated dinosaurs. That smell organic but ancient, like opening a time capsule sealed before human civilization began. Our team of 5 moved through the secondary entrance local tribe members had shown us. The passage system opened into chambers that stole breath with their scale. The first chamber functioned as a natural museum. Display cases modern, climate-controlled, clearly government-installed, containing artifacts arranged chronologically. Tools progressing from crude stone implements to sophisticated carved instruments. Skeletal remains range from 40,000 years ago to the modern era. Complete timeline of their existence on Earth, preserved and studied in a secret facility that officially doesn't exist. The second chamber displayed artwork covering every surface. Petroglyphs are far more extensive than Site 7, detailed star charts from perspectives not visible from Earth's surface. Technical diagrams that looked like engineering blueprints, craft designs, energy systems, genetic schematics, historical record of their arrival from distant solar system, interaction with early Homo sapiens. Teaching scenes dominated entire walls. Large figures instructing smaller human-like figures in agriculture, astronomy lessons, language instruction, tool creation, fire management. They weren't just visitors. They were intentional teachers who guided human development from primitive primates to civilized species. The third chamber, the archive room, contained preserved records that made everything else seem preliminary. Carved stone tablets stacked in organized collections. Metallic data storage devices humming with faint electromagnetic fields. Organic materials covered in symbolic writing systems. Our archaeologist estimated 15,000 individual records spanning the entire 43,000-year history. "This is their Library of Alexandria," she whispered. "Complete history of their species on this planet. Everything humanity doesn't know about our own origins is right here. Hidden, classified. We documented everything. Hundreds of photographs, video recording every chamber section, evidence too extensive to suppress." Then helicopter rotors cut through the cave's silence. Security breach detected. Team split. Multiple exit routes. Evidence distributed across all 5 carriers. I went through the northern passage, emerging as vehicles converged on the main entrance. 3 of us escaped. 2 were detained officially for trespassing. But the evidence was already disseminated. Uploaded to cloud storage, sent to multiple platforms. Archive photographs proved what governments denied. These beings didn't just live alongside humans, they actively guided human development. Early agriculture was taught. Astronomical knowledge came from a common source. Language structures across continents taught by beings who moved between regions, helping scattered populations develop communication. Our advancement wasn't purely evolutionary, it was education. Guided development by beings who came from elsewhere, chose to stay, and watched us grow from early hominids into Homo sapiens. Understanding why they withdrew required analyzing the timeline. 40,000 to 12,000 years ago. Active interaction, teaching relationship. 12,000 to 8,000 years ago. Withdrawal begins as human populations expand, tribal warfare intensifies. 8,000 years ago to present, complete retreat into remotest territories. Archives documented what happened when they trusted humans too openly, tribal conflicts where groups turned on them, early warfare where they were caught in conflicts, recognition that humans were becoming existentially dangerous. Modern contact attempts by the government in the 1,950 seconds and 1,960 seconds showed a pattern repeated. Specimens captured, held in facilities, subjected to testing that caused suffering. Some perished in custody. Result: complete avoidance of human contact. Archives indicated they possess technology retained from original civilization devices we don't understand, communication methods beyond our science, but they choose non-interference. Fear of human response would mean capture, exploitation, military attempts to weaponize their knowledge. Estimated global population: 5,000 to 8,000 individuals across North America, Siberia, Himalayan regions, critically endangered by continuous human expansion. A species in slow decline, waiting to see if humanity matures enough to coexist peacefully. The elder specimen's contact with me wasn't random. It was a calculated decision by their leadership, ancient individuals who remember teaching early humans. They approved the evidence release as a test. Show humans the truth. See if modern civilization is finally ready to accept them without violence. Government suppression proves human institutions still fear them. They stay hidden because we've proven repeatedly that we destroy what we don't understand, that we exploit what we can't control. They withdrew not from weakness, but from wisdom. Recognizing young, aggressive species needs time to mature before open contact becomes safe. They're waiting for humanity to evolve beyond violence, beyond exploitation. After months of released evidence, I finally learned what happened to James Whitmore. The anonymous insider sent an encrypted message I wasn't prepared to read. The 25th of September, 1993. Whitmore detained at Site 7. Refused to surrender research materials. Transported to an undisclosed federal facility. Reality. Held in isolation for 6 weeks. Interrogated extensively. Eventually broke, revealing sending samples to Dr. Chen. Team dispatched. Found Chen had secured everything, intimidated her into decades of silence. I had to stop reading. I closed my laptop and sat in darkness for an hour. The 12th of November 1993, Whitmore offered a standard deal: permanent relocation, pension, freedom in exchange for silence. He refused. Demanded public disclosure, official recognition. Considered permanent liability. The 18th of November 1993, James Whitmore perished in federal custody. The official report states cardiac arrest from stress. Unofficial assessment suggests stress was induced through interrogation. His body cremated immediately. The family notified him perished from fall. No investigation, certificate falsified, 6 weeks of psychological torture until his heart gave out. Cremation within hours. False certificate. The family told a comforting lie. James Whitmore passed away, believing the truth would stay buried forever. I walked out to where the elder had left the memorial stone, ran my fingers over the carved words, James Whitmore, teacher of truth, remembered. They knew what happened to him. Probably watched from the mountains as federal vehicles carried him away. And they'd waited 30 years for someone else to try again. I wasn't smarter than Whitmore. I'd just found his evidence in an era where information couldn't be silenced as easily. I finished it, James, I whispered. They know now. You didn't fail. Wind moved through the pines. And for just a second, maybe imagination, I heard 3 wood knocks echo from the ridge, the same pattern Whitmore had documented. They were listening, and they remembered him too. The insider provided one final detail. Final words in interrogation transcripts. You're afraid of them because they prove we're not special, not chosen, not apex. We're the second intelligence here, not the first, and they're better than us, more peaceful, more sustainable, more wise. I published this immediately. Whitmore's family demanded an investigation. The government denied everything, but public opinion shifted. Whitmore is increasingly recognized as a martyr scientist. I established the Whitmore Foundation organization dedicated to protecting researchers, investigating suppressed phenomena, advocating for Bigfoot protection, pushing for full disclosure. 1 month later, something brought everything full circle. Late evening. Motion sensors triggered. 3 large heat signatures are approaching. Elder specimen leading 2 younger individuals. But this felt different. Ceremonial. Final. I went to the porch unarmed. Elder approached, stopping just 15 feet away. In the moonlight, I could see the graying hair, the severe limp, the intelligence in eyes that held weight for thousands of years. The forest held its breath. The temperature dropped. Frost patterns formed on my porch railing despite late summer. The 3 figures stood perfectly still. This was a ceremony. He made vocalizations a low, complex pattern I felt was communication. Then we reached slowly and placed objects on the grass between us. Carved stone memorial marker. On its surface were symbols I didn't recognize, but also English words. James Whitmore, teacher of truth, remembered. They were honoring him, acknowledging humans who'd tried to tell their story, who'd lost his life, protecting evidence of their existence. The elder looked at me directly. When those ancient eyes met mine, I felt the weight of 40,000 years of patience, of watching humans grow from students to threats, of hoping we'd finally mature. He made sounds that approximated English. He tried. You finished. We remember. Both. Then touched his chest, extended hand toward me in a gesture of respect and gratitude. I placed my own hand over my chest, returning the gesture. He deserved better. I'm sorry we eliminated him. Some of us are trying to change that. The elder nodded slowly. Then all three turned and walked back into the forest, disappearing into shadows they'd inhabited for 40,000 years, leaving behind a memorial stone that now sits at the edge of my property. 1 year after evidence release, government officially recognizes critically endangered great ape species in protected habitats. Expanded protections, criminal penalties. The origin question remains under investigation. Extraterrestrial theory acknowledged in public discourse, but not confirmed. I continue living in these mountains as a primary researcher and advocate. Whitmore Foundation operational. Dr. Chen serves as senior advisor, but the beings themselves remain carefully elusive. Less frequent contact. Testing whether revelation made them genuinely safer. Population reports suggest a slight increase in sightings. Protection measures appear to be working, but they don't approach humans openly. The elder hasn't returned since delivering the memorial stone. They're waiting, observing, evaluating whether human response demonstrates readiness. They're giving humanity time to process revelation, seeing whether promises of protection translate to actual safety. Could be decades, could be centuries. They operate on timescales shaped by lifespans 3 times, human normal and cultural memories spanning millennia. 2 weeks after the elder's visit, I was checking trail cameras. Camera 7, positioned at the northeastern boundary, caught something at 4:23 in the morning that made my hands shake. 3 figures. The elder and his 2 companions, clear in infrared. But they weren't moving through the territory. They were standing at the camera, looking directly at it, looking at me. The elder raised his hand, same gesture he'd used when we made contact. But he held it there. 5 seconds, 10, 20. And then he did something I wasn't prepared for. He waved. Human wave. The kind you give someone when you're saying goodbye for a long time, maybe forever. Then all 3 walked away, toward the deep interior, the places humans can't reach, the places they've kept secret for 40,000 years. I haven't seen them since. The cameras keep recording. The motion sensors keep pinging on deer and coyotes. But not them. They've withdrawn again. Deeper this time. Maybe the elder decided humanity's test wasn't going well. Maybe he decided we need another 1,000 years. I still check camera 7 every morning. Still see nothing but deer and shadows. Maybe they've withdrawn for good. Maybe they're watching from places my cameras can't reach, waiting to see if we pass their test. If you want to follow me deeper into what's hidden in these mountains, what the government doesn't want us to find, hit subscribe and share. Drop a comment with your theory. Are they leaving Earth, or just waiting for us to prove we're worth saving? Until next time, I'll keep watching the tree line. And somewhere out there in the dark, I know they're watching back.